Looks like pretty standard so far. A lot of emphasis from Fnatic, taking away some of those top lane power picks. Something that Misfits regularly picked up in their semifinal against them was Dinar, and Jarvan was banned away from them. So both these top laners going to be taken off the board, and this often puts Soaz onto things like the Cho'Gath in their series.
Well, we did get to see both junglers obviously try and get the lanes ahead in the early game, but none of them were really successful. The thing we want to highlight here with this graphic is the amount of time Jankos likes to spend around the mid lane. Compare that to Broxah, especially in the playoffs. He was not focusing around Caps' lane very often, and that's where H2K might find a big advantage. See if you can punish the aggressive young mid laner on Fnatic's side.
Now as we enter the first round of picks, we have to wonder what the setup is going to be. Will they find an early aggressive jungler to try to set up that mid lane for success?
I'm looking at that Rakan right now. I feel like that you can't afford to give the Xayah Rakan combo away to H2K unless Fnatic going to get something.
They should go Xayah instead though, if they actually want to play this safe, because if you pick Rakan first, enemy team can respond with Xayah Morgana, and then this Rakan will not do a whole lot. By taking the Xayah, you make sure that if the enemy team then picks the Rakan to deny the Xayah Rakan combo, you can just pick the Morgana yourself. You have the Black Shield to counter it, and it makes it very difficult then for the Rakan to actually play aggressive.
And we've seen Jesus enjoys the Morgana pick immensely, going to it even in some blind pick scenarios. But taking away the Xayah early on does mean the Cho'Gath has been left open. Not great performances from either top laner last time around, but still definitely a powerful pick.
But this does give the opportunity for Soaz to play more of a carry-style top laner now. He played a lot of Cho'Gath and he was involved in a lot of initiations, but often the execution fell apart for Fnatic. So I'm looking forward to seeing what sort of carries they could put Soaz on and how much of an impact he can have in front of this crowd.
And we saw with the bans here that H2K were saying, okay, we need to target that Jarvan as well. You highlighted it before, Vedius. Soaz on Jarvan and Gnar, undefeated. When he's able to force team fights, then Fnatic are often finding success, but he can't do that when he's playing champions like Cho'Gath himself. So the fact that it's actually taken away by H2K probably does not hurt Soaz that much. I think he's happy to see the fact that they already get a Xayah for Reckless. A pick Reckless did not play in the semi-final, but he's been practicing it. It's solo queue. I still want to see the Morgana here as a counter to Rakan here. I think you win the lane straight up, but then take the Alistar instead for even more engage.
And you can see the crowd hyped up. Caps knows how to get them going. Alistar locked in. Now a lot of engage options coming from Fnatic. This is, as you mentioned, exactly what we want to see. Have to wonder if H2K have something special here, or if they just want to fight fire with fire and pack a few more engage options of their own.
Right now, a lot of hovers coming out from H2K. They could look to lock in their AD carry right now, or just get themselves a strong jungle pick so that Fnatic, they can't pinch both roles, because right now you see two engaged junglers in the form of Gragas and Sejuani. H2K building towards this big team fight comp, and now we're looking at champions like Syndra, Orianna to round out things for the side of H2K.
Yeah, very standard pick so far, but again, Fnatic, they have identified that running with just Broxah as they engage was not enough in the semi-final, so they valued the Alistar. Instead of like hard countering the Rakan, they took another engage tool to say we can always get a big engaged top laner. And if that is the case, well then it's up to Jesus and Broxah together to be the guys to start the fight.
And we heard it from the desk, and we saw it in the jungle proximity as well. Fnatic were looking to play more around bottom lane in the playoffs. H2K not looking to allow that to happen by banning out the Shen. Now the Sivir ban follows up as Fnatic look to punish the fact that there is no AD carry locked in on the side of H2K.
Yeah, and they also removed the AD carry with a spell shield. So if Ashe or Varus that comes in from nuclear or late game hyper carry, then Alistar and Gragas should be able to find that AD carry in most team fights. There's no dashes left unless they want to play Caitlyn, but she has kind of disappeared here in the European meta.
It would also be a very weird matchup. Caitlyn, Rakan, not considered the most optimal in terms of 2 versus 2, but still a few options left for H2K, but they're going to prioritize taking away some of the mid-power picks, and now you're looking at for sure an Orianna. We've talked a lot in the past about how LeBlanc is considered a pretty strong option into the Orianna, and it would round out nicely this team fight composition that H2K are building for themselves.
Yeah, there's also Syndra and Cassiopeia available, so actually all these mid laners we tend to see a lot of have been left open in this draft until this second ban phase where LeBlanc and Syndra got taken away. So it might just be a Cassiopeia for an Orianna trade happening between the teams. H2K could also just last pick their mid laner and see what Caps is planning on playing. If Caps is locking in like the blind Cassiopeia, maybe H2K says we need a champion in the mid lane with some CC that can set up a gank from a Sejuani.
But with the AD carry pool limited, it will be the utility AD carry for Nuclear, the Ashe that Reckless has liked so much in the past. Now going into the hands of H2K, have to wonder what the final Fnatic rotation will be, what this composition is going to start to look like as they debate which mid laner is the most appropriate for this composition.
So now I'm keeping my eyes on that top lane, because we talked a lot about how both mid laners are very likely going to trade here, and unless Featherman has something secret planned, the Orianna is the most expected final pick for him. When you look at Fnatic, all these possible carry top laners that Soaz can play in, the ability for him to play mid.
Yeah, Trundle is open if he wants to take that against the Cho'Gath, or he can just pick a tank. Like, you can actually just pick a tank top lane here, go even against the Cho'Gath, and just join teamfights, and that's exactly what he's doing here with the Galio. This is I call it an old school Soaz. Like, if we go back to the start of this summer split, it was a lot of Galio Shen top lane. Use that ulti to join your AD carry in a side lane and force these 2v1 plays. This is not necessarily the same kind of 1-3-1 strategy, but it is a team fighting top laner for Soaz, and also a champion where he can follow up when Jessus and Broxah dives in.
It's also perfectly fine into the lane too. One of the big issues that most top laners have against Cho'Gath is that early push, his immense amount of sustain. You're going to have similar scaling for the Galio, who can just match his wave clear, has the ability to set up for ganks with his E, and when you pair that up with the Gragas too, there's a lot of threat both in the top lane and potentially down at the bottom with Alistar as well.
Yeah, we talked a lot about H2K maybe looking towards the mid lane coming into this game, but they have drafted a combo that's not necessarily great at camping around the mid lane. There's no CC from your Corki. Sejuani as well really wants to gank lanes where there is maybe a champion who is melee attacking, so you can actually proc that passive very easily. We might actually see Yanko say, I'm going to go top lane here for the Cho'Gath, or I'm going to go bot lane with the double CC lane, Ashe and Rakan, and that's why he's looking for some of his kills.
And we were looking for potentially a carry performance to come out from Febiven. Now Corki maybe not as potent in the early game as we were expecting, not quite the build an early lead sort of champion, but definitely a champion that can carry you home if you get into that late game. Terrifying scaling on the side of H2K, and now as the compositions are composed, as the coaches shake hands, have to look at those win conditions coming in from each side, what each team is looking to do. And while we start this discussion, you can head on over to Twitter at LOL Esports is the place. Hashtag FNC win, hashtag H2K win. Let us know where your loyalties lie. Heard the crowd, it's loud and proud. Keep them the same.
And one of the things we talked a lot about for H2K was their ability to play around lanes in the early game, and it's going to be a little difficult for them when they have a Sejuani and not a huge number of lanes that have that amount of CC. So let's see what H2K can do against what will likely be a lot of pressure from Fnatic in the early parts of the game.
Team's ready. Pressure starts to mount as the third, fourth place match. Looking forward, H2K have an incredibly hard road ahead of them, a battle for the third seed at Worlds. And this will not decide it, but it will set them on the right course to redeem themselves in the eyes of Europe. And for Fnatic, match one, a chance to remind people why they were the Kings in the regular season, the old Kings, here to make a name for themselves.
And as you just said right there, playing for that confidence going into the gauntlet is so key. Both these teams are very emotional. We have heard it multiple times from the different players. We've seen it in game as well. When something goes wrong in the first game, things can start to fall apart quickly. Getting a win here in Paris in front of this crowd sets you up for success in that gauntlet.
And now we can see pretty calm level one. Both teams poking, looking down for a little bit of vision. Now this jungle matchup, we've seen it before. Yanko's taking a book from a page from the book of Trick after his series against G2, opting for the Sejuani here. But you mentioned mid lane, maybe not a high priority for those ganks. So do you think now that it is the better strategy to look to the top side, or maybe to help out this bottom side?
I think you have a few options if you're from Fnatic side. I think top lane is an option to gank, but it's not really one that you have to invest a huge number of resources in, because trying to snowball a Galio isn't necessarily the highest of priority. He's naturally going to scale anyway, and he's going to just have a back and forth lane against the Cho'Gath. Meanwhile, in the bottom lane, I think you have quite a few options. When you're playing with an Alistar and you have the ability of Desire to also follow up with roots, there's actually a lot of playmaking potential, especially when you have this low mobility Ashe, who's only really going to have a flash as an escape.
Yeah, exactly. Like having Broxah around mid and bot lane seems to be the most effective way. It's very easy for Soaz to ulti to the mid lane at level 6. Miasma from Cassiopeia makes it very hard for Febiven to escape a potential Gragas and Galio gank as well. On the side of H2K though, I love when Sejuani goes to the lane with the melee champion. In this case, it is the Cho'Gath in the top lane. If Galio is pushing aggressively early, that is a gank you can go for as Jankos, but you could also just be an H2K team saying, we don't need to force a whole lot in the early game. We have great scaling within our composition and focus more on trying to react to where Fnatic is putting the pressure.
I'm looking forward to seeing how this mid lane matchup goes, because you can already see Caps really playing in the face of Febiven. But we have to remember that in their semi-final matchup, Caps, he really didn't get that huge amount of jungle supporters. Speaking of both junglers, they will touch heads.
For a bit of a fight here. Paris is ready. Paris is hungry for blood. You can hear the crowd erupt, but will just be the small trade.
But we were talking about the mid lane, as you can see on the bottom of your screen. That's a fairly low jungle proximity there from Caps and Broxah. He preferred to invest his time into the bottom lane, very typical Fnatic style. And Caps kind of left to fend for himself, and he demonstrated that he could hold his own. But now I don't know if Broxah can hold his own against Jankos.
Little uncomfortable way to start. Jankos playing so much more aggressive than we saw in his series versus G2. A solid start so far, pressing that early advantage that he just has. Happy to continue trading with that Gragas.
And again, he's playing around that top side. He's allowing Odoamne to be aggressive in his lane and try and push into Galio early on here, securing that Rift Scuttler for him as well. And Source is just trying to pick up whatever farm he can. But so far, it's been a start where both junglers have met each other once. They kind of poked at each other a little bit and then stepped away. No early ganks just yet.
The classic high five. We finished our first clear moment.
We did it! Yay!
3 camps, we're both still healthy. Yay, tank jungle meta. Well, no kill pressure comes in, and of course Cloud Drake on the menu means that not going to be a whole lot of pressure to look for those early objectives. Checking out the bottom side, this is really one of the few places where we think we could see that constant aggression, as there's so much reliable engage on both the AD carries and supports past that level 6 mark.
But the important thing to remember as well is that even if there's not a huge amount of early game action, that's not an issue for either team. Both scale very nicely. Ashe, Xayah, both very good scaling late game carries. The same for Corki and the Casio. Both do very well in the later stages of the game. And you have 2 big beefy tanks to play around in the form of the Gragas and Galio for Fnatic, and the Sejuani and the Cho'Gath for H2K. The big difference between them is that this Casio and the Xayah are mainly going to be focusing, trying to kill the front line. They have a huge amount of DPS in the later stages. They have to make sure that they can just kill this front line that's trying to get towards them. Whereas on the side of H2K, ideally, if they can get onto the back line, it helps. But that Galio is going to make things extremely difficult for them in a lot of these chaotic fights.
Yeah, I mean, H2K will have to kind of just agree with Fnatic on how to play the game with double AD carry and say, yeah, we're also just going to hit whoever's in front of us. But the one bonus they do have, as you highlighted right there, is Odoamne's one-shot potential. If he can actually get to that carry in the backline, we know Cho'Gath can kill it. Jankos, though, he's around mid lane.
Looking to move forward. 2 stacks knocked down, looking for the 3rd, potentially a 4th. Will not find it. Caps now pushing back.
And as you guys can see here, this is like one of the reasons it can be hard for Sejuani to really camp around mid lane when you have a ranged champion like this, because you do not get those quick stacks into a stun and then some burst damage from Jankos. So Caps just end up walking away, saving both summoners.
Caps also picking up the cleanse, showing a lot of respect towards both the Ashe Arrow and Sejuani. Bit of a free summoner spell against those 2 hard CCs. Really going to be valuable in the mid game and limit a lot of the pick potential coming out from H2K.
Well, now we kind of have to wonder what exactly is going to happen, because as you mentioned, if both teams are content to scale, it looks like the one source of constant action we're going to have is the jungle. But of course, Cast a Curse, as I say it. Shay looking to get aggressive as well. Yet still, eyes remain on the jungler. Have to see how each of them will perform, because let's be honest, both of them looked like they were crumbling under the pressure during their last series.
Jankos, he did go out and say on social media, yeah, after we lost that Baron, things really started to get rough for the team.
And this is obviously one of the reasons H2K are so hard to predict in these games here, because you see a lot of good things from them, you like what they're doing during the regular season, and they go into this game against G2 and actually performed well in the first one. As you guys can see when we switch over. Fight in the bot lane though.
To keep our eyes, Ignite's going down. Nuclear's still alive, pulling back, staying safe. Flash available for Reckless, the Ignite not going to do him out in the end.
Remember what we talked about in Champion Select 2, the 2 versus 2 in the bottom lane. Really going to be difficult for Nuclear and Che as they go up against a bit of a fabled bottom lane now in the form of Fnatic and Jesus and Reckless.
We might actually get more action here. This is the graphic though, we can talk about that after. Let's see if anything happens. Caps is still around to try and force them away.
We were wondering what each team would look like coming into this series. Now, historically, Fnatic, earlier in the season, it was all about that bottom lane. It was all about Reckless on that cannon. And now here in the playoffs, backs against the wall. Looks like they're looking to rinse and repeat, because that's not Caps building an advantage for himself in the mid lane. That is Caps roaming down to the bottom lane, and all of Fnatic ready for a fight.
The Summer Split MVP Reckless on the Xayah pick here, doing really well in the laning phase. The graphic we just tried to show twice while the bot lane were busy fighting each other was basically highlighting that H2K in that first game against G2 were playing really well. They were actually leading in the game. They were setting up for that Baron. As Yanko said, as soon as they lost the Baron, it all fell apart. And that, again, is the problem with H2K. If you mentally are that weak that after losing one game, you crumble in a best of 5, then it is very difficult to start believing in them, suddenly turning it around and winning these big, important matches. Luckily, though, H2K, they have another chance to prove us wrong and show they've changed. They've improved since last week, and they are ready to actually take down Fnatic.
And the other side of that coin is we have to remember, yes, they crumble when the pressure is on, but right now, pressure not really on. They still have their spot in the gauntlet. They still can, in theory, walk that road to Worlds. But this would be an excellent first start. Cap's gonna get caught up. Quick cleanse to stop any action there, but a summoner burns.
Beautiful ultimate there from Caps. Seeing Jankos come out from the brush, immediately uses the ultimate to stop the follow-up from him. He has the cleanse to break away from that Glacial Prison too. And even with Che making his way up into the middle lane, Caps is able to get away from the gank. And this is something that we did praise Caps for. He is someone that teams like to focus, and so far he's dealing well with the pressure.
Well, we're also seeing H2K go back to the regular season roots here. Che goes into mid lane. Jankos goes into mid lane. They try and get Febiven ahead in the lane here. They have to settle with just getting a cleanse. And that ulti, Jankos' own ulti, will be up very soon again. And I would still love to see him pay a visit to the top lane, but if they feel like they can't actually leave the bottom side because of all the pressure, then it gets really hard for H2K here to find an opening.
The other thing they're going to have to be mindful of as the game progresses is Soaz on this Galio too. He can't TP in with the Shen, but he can still act as the hero in those clutch moments by using that ulti to join in some of those dangerous situations and help the team out if things start to go awry.
And of course, eyes on the top side of the map right now, it is very even. Cho'Gath, the two tanks just trading back and forth. We saw a small skirmish there earlier. But Odomina getting a little bit of vision down on the blue buff. Broxa already tried to steal the other one away, not looking to let H2K be successful in that mid lane. But gentlemen, I like that we've seen what both teams want to do already. H2K playing around the mid lane, looking to set Febiven up. And for Fnatic, it has been all about the bottom side. And Jesus just continues to get aggressive here. Yet another fight coming out. Decent damage goes down, but Reckless really not looking to commit.
Ulti comes out from Jez's.
Shea turns it around. They're not going to follow up on this any further, but very aggressive trading.
I mean, they keep winning these trades here, which just give them control of the lane to keep pushing in. And it's just a matter of time before they try and make a power play on that bottom side. Obviously, Caps losing that cleanse means he can't actually get arrowed.
Arrow coming down.
It
The
hits.
sniper coming in. That's going to be the package. Now Febiven's in trouble. Damage ticking down. Caps now going to have to run for his life. Miasma comes in. The flash over the wall. Amazing patience. There's Febiven. What a dodge! Comes out. One more rocket, baby. Flash in. First blood.
Beautiful play from Febiven. He was waiting for the ultimate. Just as he reads it, he gets the turnaround and they get the kill onto Caps.
The same player that got hit by every single Cassiopeia ulti against G2 in that third game just had a nice little step here where he turns around and he secures the kill for his team. Great to see from H2K.
Febiven, he had a bad performance, but he is making up for it now with the support of his team. But Fnatic, they want to answer back.
Jesus moving forward. Che not going to have it. Alistair no ultimate, and that means he's going to drop in an instant goodbye. Another kill over to Febiven.
Oh, Jesus, I'm not sure what you were trying to do around that mid lane. Soaz was moving down though, so maybe they were trying to set up a play with the Galio, but not having that ulti means you are very, very squishy in the early game. And Che with the instant reaction on the Rakan.
Love this roaming from Che and coordination with Jankos. H2K really returning to their roots and setting up Febiven for success so beautifully. This Corki is going to start to scale like a madman. Already completed the Sheen, working his way towards the Trinity Force. And as a classic caster saying, that is where the power spike will hit for H2K, and that's where they can really look to force an advantage over their opposition.
Really going to look across the board. And especially back at this individual play, this is exactly what we wanted to see from H2K, and just such an impressive way to start the series.
And I just love the use of the arrow. You can't make a play happen down bot, so let's try and make something happen in mid. It lands onto Caps, and you think that with the flash, dodging the ulti, everything going in his way, all he has to do is land the ult, but Febiven reads it. He gets the sidestep. Shay is here to add a bit of support as well, and everything just goes in favor to set up Febiven for success.
As soon as Caps did not flash the first arrow, then he was left in a very tricky situation. H2K, with so many members invested around that lane again, finally found the success they actually needed. Broxah have still not been able to succeed with any ganks. He's been focusing just on farming and placing down vision. Top lane right now is even, and bot lane is still in favor of Fnatic.
The other thing to remember as well is that bot tier 1 is getting very low. Rekkles and Jezz have not stopped pushing. And because of all the vision control they have over the river and all the pressure from Jankos in mid, there's been no threat of anything towards the bottom half of the map. So now Fnatic, they could look to make a play down the bottom side.
Well, Jankos is on his way. Remember, Soaz cannot ulti from the top lane. He needs to TP in. Broxah is on the bottom side, but he's pretty far away. He might be spotted here at the red buff. So H2K, they know where the jungler is at the moment.
Trying to relieve the pressure, maybe. The tower slowly being chipped down, the matchup slowly being lost. H2K want to get the bottom lane back under their control, but Jankos, is he just wasting his time here? We're waiting for that engage.
Yeah, remember, ultis available from Jezz and Rekkles. Rekkles can use that ulti to dodge the Sejuani engage here. H2K will back away for now. They're instead going to try and take a red buff.
And you can hear the crowd chanting for action. Do it, do it. As they wait for Jankos to try and set up a gank, but he decides it's too risky, not worth it. Backs away, but they do get a lot of vision down in the bottom half of Fnatic's jungle and around this early Cloud Drake.
Oh, and it's the mid lane show once again. May not be the support of the jungler roaming down, but the top laner instead. Caps, no flash to his name, but a cleanse. Not going to help too much against that rupture. Luckily, Cho'Gath a little too slow, a little too big, too easy to dodge. Now, however, as we look at it, no real major advantages. We saw the first 2 kills, a kind of an explosion of action here in this early game, but everything feels to have calmed down, maybe waiting for another window to look for those opportunities.
Yeah, and while we did talk about both teams, you know, good scaling and everything, the slower early game that happened before we hit that 10-minute mark was really good for H2K, because again, they were playing this draft where there wasn't that many easy lanes to just constantly camp. They couldn't like go mid lane pre-level 6 with a Sejuani and execute anything because it's a Corki sitting in there. The fact that it actually commits so much and get the 2 kills while Fnatic have not been able to respond with anything except for the bot lane pressure is really good for H2K's lineup. Trinity Force is very close now for Febiven, and Jankos, a player who needs a good start in a best of 5 to really start to take over, already succeeded with the first few plays.
And we can talk about the emotional pressure in the series, but I also want to look at the scaling. Vedius, we mentioned earlier that, you know, Fnatic are okay, sitting back, waiting. They have so much damage. They have this tanky front line, but I feel like if kills keep going over to Febiven, that is no longer the case.
It's definitely going to be a risk, because the thing about Cassio is at this point in the game, when she's sitting on all these mana items, she doesn't actually do a huge amount of damage. She has max levels in her E, which sure will chunk, especially if she can stack the poison too, but she's actually got no ability power to his name, while Corki, he's very nearly completed his Trinity Force, so if both teams were to fight right now, things would heavily go in the favor of H2K. So Fnatic, they need to be a little bit more patient. Once Caps gets his first, second item, that's when Fnatic can be a little bit more proactive, and fortunately for them, Rekkles is still doing phenomenally on this Xayah, already completing the Essence Reaver, and he has a healthy lead over his counterpart.
It would be great to see Fnatic actually send Broxah to mid lane, push out the wave with Caps, so just give him that safety so he can do it, and then look to go bottom lane and get down this tower, get the first tower gold to try and get a gold advantage.
You can even see Jankos coming down to try and mitigate some of the pressure. They want to try and prevent any kind of bot lane dive, but I'm a little surprised that Shay and Nuclear didn't decide to swap to the top side and then look to try and trade towers. They still think they can hold on to it for a little while longer.
Pressure definitely mounts, but decent wave clear coming in on the bottom side of the map, and Jankos, of course, consistently there to back them up as the tower is threatened. Rekkles, clearly, though, one-track mind right now. He wants that tower, putting the pressure on H2K.
And look at the minimap right now. Caps got to push out the mid lane. He's moving down the rivers, as we just talked about here. At least trying to tell H2K, yes, we are 4 members bot lane and a TP top lane, so we can fully commit for this tower. But Jankos is sitting here, providing defense. He's making sure that this tower will not fall early on. Let's see what happens around the mid lane.
Paris is alive once again, looking for a little bit of a play. Cap's going to flash out to safety. Brock's on the retreat as well, but Jankos has a different plan in mind. Looking for a little bit of damage, but in comes the Galio. Jankos is going to get knocked up, looking to turn and burn. No taunt going to connect. Both teams backing off.
But Reckless, he stayed in the bottom lane. The other members of Fnatic were able to disengage, and that gave Fnatic the freedom to get this tower. H2K, because they tried to force a team fight in the mid, will not be able to trade any towers, and they want to try and get some push down onto the mid tier 1, but Soaz is still here.
Soaz waiting. Going to find the double taunt, maybe looking for a little bit more. Miasma's already down on the Fnatic, but he manages to make it out.
The thing is, Fnatic cannot force anything in mid unless the bot lane is there. They're on their way now. Jesus and Reckless are finally joining the mid lane party.
Walking forward, ready for
Party's
a fight. Waiting for that headbutt pulverize. Not interested in the pajama party on the side of H2K. But now they're just rotating their bottom lane to the mid lane and looking to keep that pressure going. Fnatic trying to retake control, and they definitely already starting to build up that gold lead. They were at a deficit just moments ago.
And the Xayah will be able to push waves much faster than an Ashe. So Reckless can push his wave. He can then actually go to the top lane and start pushing in that tower and have a bit of a tempo advantage. First, though, he needs to just clear out the bottom lane wave so their tower does not take any damage. Once he's done that, he can look for that recall into then roaming to other lanes. And right now, for Fnatic, it's all about keeping that pressure going. Keep the tempo up and see if they can get 1 or 2 more towers before H2K can respond.
Caps is still holding his own. He's not so far behind Febiven that Fnatic will be in a real deficit right now. Things are still going in the favor. They even hold on to the gold lead, even with the 2 early kills going in favor of H2K. This is still a very tense game between these two teams, even after the early lead that H2K built for themselves.
And Abyssal Mass just makes it so easy for Caps to sit in that lane. Morello and Omicron on the way next, and Fnatic using the advantage that they have, using the pressure in their lanes to look for this early Cloud Drake. A little extra mobility when Reckless does want to roam into that mid lane. Go look for another wave to push or a play to make.
Still have to remember up in the top lane, we haven't talked a lot about them because they've just been sitting and farming against each other. No one's really been able to play around the top lane. But while Galio with his ulti can be super impactful, especially in the mid game, Cho'Gath in the late game is probably the scariest tank to play against. That's why teams are drafting him so early. And Odo Amne, while he was pressured a lot in the semifinal on this Cho'Gath specifically, he's just been left to farm here. He's reaching, you know, the late game point slowly, but he will get there soon enough. And then actually he can start being a massive carry in teamfights. Galio can't really do exactly the same.
But of all the AD carries to try and deal with, Xayah will certainly be the hardest as Fnatic and H2K look to try and fight in the bottom lane.
For the engage on Che, they're all going to turn it on them. Fnatic now looking for a little bit more Galio to use, but then immediately canceled out. Odo Wamne is here and he's looking for a fight. Febiven coming in with the backup. Caps too far behind. This is advantage for H2K in the fight. Rekko's looking for the big plays, but he can't make it out. That's the Cho'Gath damage. Now H2K looking to close it out. No hope for Jesus. H2K dominating the exchange. Caps coming back, but it's too little, too late.
Big interrupt there from Jankos onto Soaz, preventing the ulti from joining the fight and allowing H2K to continue their siege onto their opposition. H2K finding a great pick. They turned the collapse around onto Fnatic, and they will get themselves their first tower of the game.
I am very surprised that Fnatic decided to send the dual lane back to that bottom lane and force a play around it. They had the pushing advantage due to Xayah's fast wave clear, and yet they opted into a 5-on-5 teamfight where Caps could not even move first in the mid lane. Look at the minimap right now. Cassiopeia is sitting under her tower. The rest of H2K, they're ready to move. Corki is already towards the bottom lane as soon as this engage happens. Great engage from Che into a stun from Nuclear. Look at your minimap again, guys. Caps is not even at the Dragon Pit just yet. Fnatic opted into a fight, 4v5, in a lane that did not even have to be in the first place, and they got punished for it.
It was a very risky move from Fnatic, and H2K were able to respond extremely effectively. Again, mad praise to Jankos, interrupting that hero's entrance. If Soaz had arrived in the middle of that fight, maybe he would have been able to buy enough time for Caps to join the fray.
And guys, you forget, because it's time to celebrate. It's the 10,000th EU LCS minute for our Summer Split MVP. That's probably not how he wanted to spend it, if I had to guess. But just generally, we can start to understand why Fnatic might be looking to put attention on the bottom side. And no, gentlemen, it is not because there's been 10,000 minutes of Reckless gameplay, but because of some of these fantastic stats coming out. Fnatic, though, finally adapting as we see them move to the top side.
One of the big things about Reckless is that even after Fnatic struggled in their series versus Misfits, he was still one of the most consistent performers. He was still able to output very high damage numbers, but he wasn't truly a carry for the team of Misfits. He wasn't able to do a huge amount on that Ashe. But now Fnatic, they have a few more options in their kit. They have the Alistar, they have the Galio, and Fnatic, they still have windows to come back into the game, but H2K are playing this early game beautifully. The question is, can they hold on to it?
Well, Reckless getting the MVP in the summer split was the most one-sided MVP vote we've had in a long time. In the spring split, Visichachi beat Sven by 2 points. It was a landslide victory for Reckless here. Almost every single vote had him either #1 or #2. And this is, of course, from broadcast, from players, from coaches, from third-party media. It was a very, very one-sided race. And Reckless, of course, managed to win that MVP. But for now, he needs to focus on this game and try and get back after the team has already fallen behind.
And now he's been moved off to a side lane. A little later than what we wanted.
Do it a few minutes earlier, and that fight in the bot lane never happens.
And also, Fnatic would have been able to keep their mid-tier 1, which they've now lost, as Odo and Reckless have a bit of a face-off.
I mean, I don't know if they know they're having a face-off.
But
though.
we know that they don't know.
We definitely do. That's going to be the chain CC. That's perfect. No chance, no hope. Goodbye.
Oh, Soaz is here.
Summer split MVP. Soaz definitely did not want to follow that one up. Is going to get knocked up once again. Fevivin now pushing, looking for a little bit more. Jesus should be tanky enough to escape, but H2K in absolute control as Soaz drops.
And H2K are just finding fights around Reckless now. They know that Fnatic are trying to play around the bottom lane, the one winning lane they had on the map. And they're just reacting so well. Odo Amna hiding in that brush. Nice chaining of CC and Silence, so no way out for Desire. That's a Baron going down.
And they're burning through this Baron. This is the moment. This is where everything went wrong for H2K last time, but Fnatic are in no position to contest. The first Baron of the series, a crucial moment, and it is going to go over to H2K.
Such a clean performance from H2K. We talked about how much they rely on momentum. This is a team that did look very strong in their game 1 versus G2, but a Baron at 22 minutes that they unfortunately lost, and that, from Jankos' perspective, is where things fell apart. But now, H2K have the momentum, they have the 5,000 gold lead, they have a scaling teamfight composition, and they are not afraid to force these fights.
And Jankos killed the Baron.
He did indeed.
Revenge! Let's see, top lane. Chaining that CC with the knock-up and the Silence landing, so it's an easy arrow from Nuclear after. Reckless does not see the knock-up in time, then he is locked in place, and sadly for Soaz, trying to be the great teammate he is, saving his AD carry, ends up actually having to die as well.
And I love this collapse from the rest of H2K as well. You saw them moving up through the river, cutting off the possible escape of Soaz and Jesus as they retreated through the laning phase, and they were able to guarantee 2 kills and the final tier 1 tower.
Oh. May not be the traditional AD carry, but it looks like Reckless is looking to run this one down. Fevivin on a killing spree.
We're 25 minutes in, and Fevivin sitting with Trinity Force, Infinity Edge, the 2 most expensive items, already with Hexdrinker as well. Like, he's so fed on this Korean. Fnatic's playstyle in this game with this draft, it's been too predictable for H2K. They know that Galio wants to try and join Desire lane. They know that Caps can't really push and leave his lane because he fell a little bit behind on his Cassiopeia, and he's a Cassiopeia. He can't really face check anything. So all the plays from Fnatic have been around Jesus and Reckless, and H2K now twice responded by just having more members ready to fight.
This is an H2K just in absolute control of the game. There's no pressure factor here. There is no tilt or emotions getting the better of them. This is such a clean performance so far, but Fnatic are looking to turn it back. Broxa tries to find the aggressive engage, but the follow-up is just not there. The damage source, Reckless, already off to that side lane.
H2K, they're happy to just group up and start sieging. They have the Baron, they have a huge gold lead, and they found a pick.
Guy, they're going to be stunned up. Cho'Gath sitting on the feast, up and available. Soaz trying to make it out. Miasma going to make it hard for them to chase. Now they're looking to turn and burn. H2K are a little bit split up, but here comes the rest of the team. Nuclear firing in the arrow. H2K looking to make this fight a death sentence. Fnatic biting off more than they can chew.
And it's H2K constantly finding fights against Fnatic, either onto Reckless or when he is not there. Fnatic are never a complete unit, and H2K always are. This 5-man squad is just dismantling Fnatic as they are 9-0, and at 26 minutes are about to take the first inhibitor.
And I love watching Che and Rakan. Like, he's been starting so many of these quick engages here from H2K's side. This champion is so good if you want to play active once you get out of that laning phase, and that's exactly what he's been doing. Good roams early in the game towards mid, and now some good setups as well here.
And the game started getting Fevivin ahead, shutting down Caps. We've seen that be a path to success, but now all of H2K is playing so well as a team, even outside the laning phase.
And you can see Jankos and Odo, they just tried to pressure out Soaz while Reckless is just farming away up in the top lane. H2K know they can force this fight, and another great arrow onto the mid laner of Fnatic results in a quick demise for the Cassio. You get knocked up too, there's nothing that you can really cleanse, and even though he burned it, it resulted in very little. Just look at the damage numbers. Fisher, you talk so much about it. This possible carry threat from Odo Amne, he is doing so much work, along with Jankos on a Sejuani, surprisingly enough.
At this point here, everyone can deal damage on the side of H2K when it is far ahead. We're gonna get a fight up here.
So trying to lock up Fevivin. The chain CC comes in. Fevivin is going to drop. Nice pick back for Fnatic. Holding on as the rest of H2K look to apply pressure on the bottom side, but it's something to get them started.
So a bit of a misplay there from Fevivin trying to push out a lane when the rest of his team didn't really have proper pressure on the map, but fortunately, Nuclear and Shay were on the bottom side, so they can trade it for a turret. Fnatic finally get onto the kill board. Caps gets himself that secure, but it means very little in terms of overall pressure on the side of Fnatic.
Yeah, because when you're 27 minutes in, when it's 1 kill to 9, when you're at a 10K gold deficit on the side of Fnatic, 1 kill is not enough, and trading it for a tower may not be what you want. It's looking a little grim here for Fnatic in game 1, but we wondered if H2K could be stronger, if they would crumble under the pressure, and they're already showing that in this series.
Yeah, and so many people talked about how important it was for especially H2K to do well in that first game to get some of that confidence back. They're probably going to try and kill Soaz.
Lock up chain CC, looking to keep it going. Soaz slowly but surely getting burned down. Justice punch out, but a quick ice bola to follow that up. Now the knockup from Odo Amne as well. There was no hope for Soaz in that exchange.
Just trying to shut down the split pusher. He didn't even have his ulti available while the TP was up. H2K just like, well, we've taken your mid inhib. We have a wave slow pushing in top lane. We may as well just start grouping up and forcing fights bottom. Fevivin, he's on his way through the jungle now. Fnatic, they only have 4 members. H2K, they could go for a dive if they wanted to, but there's always that element of risk of the Fnatic turnaround.
Flash forward, Caps looking to be the playmaker that the team needs. Now knocked back into the tower. Fnatic trying to find advantage right here. 10K lead. Jez is keeping the fight going. Reckless, Caps still alive. The tank line is down. H2K have a massive gold lead, but it may not be enough. Fevivin has lived through everything. He is starting to the retreat, but Reckless is hungry for blood. Now moving forward, Jez takes down Jankos. Body slam moving in. Fnatic are looking to regain control.
Soaz is alive in just a few seconds. TP is ready, but there's no wards behind him. They got a few minions in the mid lane they have to deal with.
Pulling back, they have to protect the face, but a beautiful, beautiful fight coming in from Fnatic, finding that opportunity in a clutch moment.
And that was all Caps with that insane engage here. They even keep the tower alive, but Cassiopeia hiding around the wall, flash ulti straight onto the AD carry, set up the rest of Fnatic here for success, and that was a 4v5. Soaz was dead the entire time, but they need a lot more of those fights.
But they needed to make it happen then and there, because as we were just saying before, Fevivin was making his way through the jungle. The second primary damage dealer of H2K was unavailable, so if they shut down Nuclear in that instant, then that is a lot of damage that disappears on the side of H2K. So Fnatic, rather than wait to just slowly lose the rest of the base, they instead take a gamble, they take the risk, they try and force the fight, and they make it work.
Good to see. And H2K maybe starting to second guess these more aggressive plays, pushing in his 5, maybe just going to wait for the next Baron now.
H2K should still feel super confident. They have all the flashes ready. They did actually not use any major cooldowns in the last fight. They will know next time, okay, respect the flash engage from Caps. Those kind of flash ultis, they only happen like once, maybe twice per game at maximum. So I think H2K will still feel fairly confident going into the next fight and just respect that potential.
But it could all come down to the Baron. H2K getting pressure in the mid lane, setting it up. Very standard. Che, though, may not be content with the Baron to close it out. May not be content with the slow, steady close. Instead, looking for a fight. Broxa, similar plan here. So as coming in on the side, Odo Amne all alone and isolated. H2K not on the same page, but Jesus looking to get deleted. In comes the follow-up CC. Galio trying to keep the whole team alive. Reckless is dishing out the damage from the backside. Left completely untouched, but Nuclear and Fevivin are in the same boat, and it's disaster for Fnatic as it turns against them. The double kill drops. Fevivin looking to play cleanup, and Reckless cannot do anything.
We talked at the start of this game about how both carries just want to hit whatever's in front of them. All the tanks are in the middle of the mess. All the carries are on the back line, but Nuclear is just stronger, and he shreds through the Fnatic lineup, resulting in the team fight win and likely game 1 for H2K.
And that is the power of the lead that H2K have built themselves. Not today. They say, we will not fall, we will not crumble, we will not tilt. That fight you took will not scare us. As they're moving in, as they're closing out with confidence here in game 1.
Very, very good game from H2K. Great to see them work hard during the week here and come in prepared for Fnatic. A lot of focus around the mid lane. We had Shay roaming and we had Jankos ganking multiple times. Even when they couldn't get a kill, they did it to get some pressure, to get Febiven ahead in that lane. And while Fnatic had that winning bot lane, it almost became too predictable that they were trying to play around that bot lane and they ended up getting punished in the side lanes.
And I feel like they just didn't use that bot lane enough. You talked a lot about how coming into the, once they had that lead, they could have moved this AD carry and support around the map. Nuclear and Shay could not hold them in the 2 versus 2. They had options available for them, but a couple of bad fights, a couple of bad decisions, constantly sending Reckless off into a side lane. H2K were just consistently there to punish, always grouping as a 5-man unit and effectively using that early game lead and running away with it.
That's exactly the play we want to see when H2K are on form, when they are on point, snowballing so consistently. Jankos showing us why he has been considered for so long a top jungler as well. And I gotta say, with a strong start to the series like this, it makes you start to wonder, all those predictions stacked against H2K, is this the time where they can finally do it? Finally win under the playoffs of pressure, the pressure of playoffs?
I mean, the thing is, coming into this game, I think it was very hard to actually predict who is the favorite, because it's so hard to predict which state of the team's in. Like, how much did they learn from the semifinal loss? Do they have time to actually fix some of those things within just a week? And the fact that H2K have such a good first game here is great for them. Fnatic, though, on their side, when they draft these comps here where they can't really play around caps too effectively, and in this case, Source is on a tank, they were lacking a bit of punch in that early game from the top side of the map. Broxah on Gragas did not find any ganks at all. Elise is still his most successful pick in the regular season.
Banned away.
Always banned away.
He banned it.
They banned it, you know. So the thing is, for Broxah, he might need to find an early game jungler where he can actually try and gank his lanes more effectively if he wants to get caps ahead especially.
All right, well, you've heard what we have to say. H2K started their way to victory in game 1. Let's head over to the analyst desk for a closer look at how that went down.
Thank you very much, Dracos. Now, I heard you referencing how hard it was to predict the series, and my 2 analysts agreed that it was difficult to predict, but that so much would hinge on H2K getting the first victory, of getting the win in the first game. So obviously, this will do a lot for their confidence.
Yeah, for sure. I think H2K and Fnatic, they're both very, very emotional teams. And I think a start to this series in this kind of fashion is very important.
It is. Let's take a look at the picks and bans for the first series, or for the first game of the series, rather, because we had a lot to say about the semifinal draft and the semifinal approach of Fnatic to the game. So did you see a lot of improvements here, Zabutin?
Actually, that's kind of weird, because Fnatic could just try to play the side pressure, as we said, or play the meta. And they try to go directly in the jungle mid-pressure draft with Cassiopeia and Gragas in the jungle, where H2K went Fnatic semi-final style with the side pressure with the Sejuani. And just instead of a Talia, which is the most common, they went for a Corki to scale a little bit more in the late game. And actually, there was no pressure in the early game from Broxah, so they didn't satisfy the condition of jungle mid-pressure. And H2K was 2 kills ahead for the Corki, and it was kind of already too late.
Well, we're also going to take a look at that first blood brought to you by Acer Predator, because it was so important for Febiven to get a good start. Also, great arrow starting from the bottom lane, Yamato, and securing that engage.
Of course, looking at, H2K's composition, their only win condition is the package. Because Cassiopeia is supposed to have pressure the entire time, but Broxah was very, very inactive. The package comes online, and all of a sudden we see this H2K that we've been longing for. The one that they play 3 as a duo together, as a trio, I mean, and of course, set these things up and get a big advantage on the Corki that is so important in such a snowballing matchup.
Yeah, we also see that here, Justice and Fnatic, they try to do something more and try and get a kill back, but it doesn't work out. And we talked a lot about this man, how versus Perks, it was just sad to see, because Febiven had been fantastic in the suburb split, Zabutin, and it's very important for him to get ahead and for him to control these games for H2K.
I really think like H2K is more a team that should be playing around jungle mid-pressure and they choose something else. But eventually, Fabian was fed, so he could carry the game the way he used to during the regular season. And that's a clever choice, I think, from Proli to give him a scaling pick where he can actually play passive in the early game, but show himself during the mid and late game. The transition was perfect on the timing of the Trinity Force. He just screwed completely Fnatic on the first skirmish.
It's like if you just compare the compositions, H2K, the win condition is the package, which is 8 minutes in. So it's very important that you use the Cassiopeia, use the Gragas to get advantages in the early game. But they didn't do it. The first gank onto Cassiopeia was from the Sejuani. And of course, Jess has tried very desperately to do something into mid. This has been a very big weakness for Fnatic. And I think what they need to do is either play around Caps, which is a phenomenal player, a clutch player that can gain pressure, or they just need to give him a Tilia, even Twisted Fate, just something that you can leave in mid lane, can join from other directions and then play like that.
Well, Yamato, the next replay you want to take a look at, you were pointing out how with a teleport that comes in, Fnatic is not connected to Caps at all. It seems like they're not talking to him when they're making this move.
Not at all. They are TPing, forcing on bottom. Right now you can see Cassiopeia in mid lane is farming a wave. You can see it on the minimap. She's not connected to the game at all. I feel like Fnatic is playing 1v4, v5. Caps is playing in his own game where he's getting pressured. Of course, Corki was first to the wave after basing first, pushed in the wave, he's 2-0, he's gonna have pressure, but they're committing into this bot play.
Yeah, we're gonna roll this replay out, Sabuti.
Yeah, the worst part, I think, into this decision is there is no tower on the bot lane, because basically in League of Legends you always do a move to get one objective on the map, and there is nothing big to get. Top lane was available for a push, mid lane was pushed, and Cassiopeia has to wave clear before, so they get like directly on their opponents without any response from the mid lane, and eventually they just lose the team fight.
Well, a huge advantage here for H2K, and we gotta remember they were also already up 2 kills on a big advantage, so even if it was a bit of a harder fight, they would have still had an advantage going into it and just cements it. This guy here on your screen, someone we've always looked at for being quite emotional on stage, Jankos, now up versus Broxa, but is it fair to say that Broxa really didn't give him a hard time?
Not at all. I think Broxa was non-existent, played around the wrong lanes. He was totally predictable in his way to go into bottom. Sejuani was around at the right times. Jankos pressured at the right times around mid, was there for the package, and did a phenomenal job overall and outshone Broxa.
Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, Broxa went passive against a babysit jungler. Sejuani is kind of a babysit jungler. You just hold the mid lane when the mid lane is away, but basically do nothing but farming or pressuring a little bit the side lanes. So he should have been pressuring more the mid lane, definitely.
All right, we want to see what happens in game 2. Fnatic, if I summarize it, it was not entirely the draft that was more the focus of them in-game. Give Cap something that he can do well on, because you guys think that he merits the trust that you put in him if he can carry.
I think as a player, he's a phenomenal Cassiopeia, but when you have a Cassiopeia, you need to play around. You need to commit to the idea that you play around it. But once again, Fnatic showed that Jessis doesn't know how to pass through mid, Broxa doesn't know how to pressure mid, so they need to put him on a Talia that he can support the side lane fights, even though he doesn't get any attention.
Yeah, we should also hope this is a best of 5 and that doesn't happen what happened to the teams last week after losing that first game. We hope that they can shape up and give us a good series, but after an early exit in the semifinals, H2K are looking to make a statement here tonight. Join us when we hit the Rift back in a couple of minutes.